This is a video I've been wanting to make for quite a while. I just didn't quite know how to organize it. It's just comparing annotations in Rhino versus AutoCAD. So first I'll just quickly go over three key points I wrote down for myself here. The first point being that I'm not inferring either is better or worse necessarily. I'm not saying anything in Rhino needs a major overhaul except for maybe the text editor, but in general, as I use Rhino's annotation features more, I like them more and more, and I've really been able to close the gap, the speed difference between annotating in AutoCAD versus Rhino. Okay, so key point number 2 is the fact that I've been using AutoCAD for over 10 years. The AutoCAD way feels like the normal, the right way, and that doesn't mean it's better, I guess. So I'll just give a quick example. You know, in AutoCAD, dimensions are orthogonal, right? By default. And if I wanted to do a dimension on an angle, I do dim aligned. Whereas Rhino, of course, you could still do the orthogonal dimensions, but you'd probably use dim rotated instead of dim aligned. So it's quite a bit different, but that's not to say one is better than the other. I just want to make that clear. Okay, so my third key point is simply to say that after accounting for all the other factors, I feel like AutoCAD is still going to have a speed advantage. There's two reasons. One is that it's just easier to get at the grips in AutoCAD annotations. And then I can also use commands like stretch to move them around. Whereas in Rhino, it just takes, you know, that extra second to get your grip selected. So I'll put that back. As you can kind of see here, it's not a huge deficit, but I think, and I guess, yeah, with that, with the grips and stuff like that, you have to change the underlying nature of a Rhino annotation. I don't think it's quite worth it. So yeah, and I'll go into more depth in just a little bit here, but I think it's the text editor that really tips the scale and has me running back, I guess, to AutoCAD to do my annotations. Okay, so with those three key points out of the way, I'll just go through here and just play around with stuff a little bit. So as you can see, yeah, I can use the stretch command. I can just do a crossing window and select that, the dimension like that. It's quite easy to move the text. I have that dimension style set to not have a leader, but I can change that quite easily in the properties. Okay, so leaders, as you saw, they're a little bit easier to work with in AutoCAD. My style is to actually have the leader and the text separate. One reason for that is I hate having this, how do I show you guys that little gap right here, right? So I want my leader to go right to the text even when the first line doesn't take up the whole, when there's that, I guess, that white space right there, right? I just really don't like the look of that. And then there's a few other advantages. But anyways, as far as this is concerned, it's really easy to do, I guess, make the exact same behavior of my AutoLisp with Rhino C# API. So that's not really a problem. So now with all these dimensions, if I want to move them, I can just select them all. I can stretch them. They're not actually attached to one another, right? So they're separate objects, but I'm pretty okay with that because, yeah, I can use my stretch command. And okay, so I'll go into Rhino, and one thing I found is that when I select all my dimensions, it's a little bit, I guess, unintuitive how you actually get those points activated. So a fix for that, of course, is to have a hotkey for my points on. And once I get used to it, I'm almost as fast as I'd be in AutoCAD, right? So yeah, if I select an individual dimension, it's pretty easy to get to that control point. But when I select more than one dimension, or all of them, I got to do the points on. Oops. But yeah, so if I simply pick a good hotkey for my points on, that issue is more or less solved. So it's only marginally slower in Rhino, and obviously you get a lot of benefits doing your annotations in Rhino compared to AutoCAD. A lot of the things I'm showing you are only saving me fractions of seconds, and I don't think that's worth the thousands of dollars per year in subscription fees I'm paying for AutoCAD. So I can stomach a marginal speed loss in those cases. Okay, so next I'll just talk about dimension leaders briefly. To be honest, I don't really like how AutoCAD does their leader. It's kind of ugly. It's cumbersome. When you get even this close, it disappears, right? So what I actually like to do is just use my my leader lines. Kind of got a quick macro there. I drew this. It's just a polyline. It's not actually a leader, right? But I just wanted to do that because that's kind of how Revit does theirs, and this would follow the number around really nicely, not like it wouldn't have that broken tangency that you're seeing right there, right? So that would be super cool, but even if I just have the ability to, I guess what I'm saying here is that if I can snap to the middle of my dimension line, that kind of fixes my leader issue. And to be honest, yeah, I don't like AutoCAD's leader. I'd rather just draw my own. And if you have your leaders set up on macros, you can do that super quick. But yeah, I'd say that's not a big fan of Revit, but I love how their dimension leaders work. Okay, so next, and this is something I kind of figured out in Rhino. I kind of know how to. I don't even want to say work around it because it's just a system, right? I can have different annotation scales display or not display. This is kind of actually dangerous because sometimes something at the wrong annotation scale might be critical information. It might be maybe someone used this scale, which I think is 1 inch equals 1 foot, and drew this and scaled it up, and it's that would actually potentially disappear if it was drawn out the wrong scale and you weren't using this. What is this? I think it's all anno visible. Yeah. So anyways, that's kind of cool because you can use it through viewports and stuff, right? With Rhino, I think I'm going to do something similar with layers, maybe have a dialog box that switches stuff around. Anyways, I got a couple ideas swirling around in my head that I'll set the scale to that and just show you guys what happens when I do that, right? So it only works, for example, this is actually scaled up from 1 inch equals 1 foot 0. And as you can see, it's not behaving consistently with the rest of the annotations. But anyways, that's kind of something cool in AutoCAD. Some people like the annotative text. The reason I like it is because I only have to create one style, and then it can virtually automatically be applied to any scale in my scales list. I don't have to make different styles for different scales. So Rhino, you can make everything work for you. I'll go into options. You have your annotation styles, and once you create them, I actually made, this won't work in this drawing because I don't have my base style, but I actually made a script that will create every style for every scale you actually want, right? So that's something we can totally work with. But yeah, the annotative text and stuff like that, that's something I really like in AutoCAD. Okay, so save the best for last here. Yeah, so it's not just AutoCAD that has the rich text editor. Virtually any AutoCAD or AutoCAD clone, I'd say there's at least a half dozen of them right now. They all have all these different features. Like, for example, one click for superscript or subscript. Having quick access to symbols is absolutely awesome. Bunch of stuff here. Line spacing, that's helpful. The bullets, I don't know. If we had access like to symbols really quickly, and I'll get into that in more depth in just a little bit here, it could save us a lot of time. Yeah, combined with the line spacing, we could just manually make bullet lists, because ultimately, I mean, I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna click my bullet list. The default, like, this isn't indented, right? So you actually have to mess around with it a little bit, right? And me, I don't mind us going to Rhino, because I was playing around to see if I could actually copy and paste that black dot that you use for bullets, and sure enough you can, and I could just manually do the spacing, Control V, a couple spaces there, something like that, right? That's fine. Having the line spacing would help out here. So yeah, like, let's say a little button for a symbol, maybe line spacing. I don't know how hard that would be to implement. There's that. I was playing around with the stacking, and to be honest, once you get used to it, it's quick. It's almost as quick as AutoCAD, right? My only argument there, and this would be not so much for me, I guess, for other people, it's just unintuitive, because a lot of people, like, I was an MS-DOS kid, right? So I don't mind typing stuff that isn't necessarily, how should I say, like, these days people wouldn't relate double square brackets to stacking, I guess. I don't know. That's the best I can explain it. But anyways, I don't mind that so much. So yeah, back into AutoCAD here. So I'll double click on here. One thing you'll notice is that when I double click on the text, I'm still kind of in the same space, right? Like, my drawing's still here. I mean, it is modal. I got to click outside of it before I can access anything else. But it feels like I'm still connected to the space, right? Whereas if I go into Rhino, click on this, and the dialogue comes up, and I'm not in the same space anymore, right? So that's minor, you know. It's cool that you can just go to properties and you have all that here, but I guess one additional advantage to that is I have, you know, I can control the width, the height of the text if I want. So all that stuff's really cool. This is something you can explore on your own. Some of this stuff is modestly helpful. Some stuff, as I mentioned, would be insanely helpful, especially like the superscript. You got your subscript. That's super convenient, super helpful. But yeah, even maybe have to explore this more. Maybe there is like just like the square brackets, maybe there's a way to do that superscript and subscript, and that would work just fine for me. But I can't speak for other people, of course. But Okay, so one last thing I wanted to mention before I end this video off is that I haven't really gotten into all the cool features of Rhino's annotations. There's some stuff I already like better than AutoCAD in spite of being that much more familiar with AutoCAD. There's cool features like, you can read the dimension from any direction in 3D. That's super cool. But yeah, and I'll just reiterate that the control point versus AutoCAD's grip, that's only very marginal. And if someone's willing to get used to the gumball, which I seem to like more and more every day, every time I use it and get more used to it. So I think speeding up in that department's more up to, in my case, more on me than Rhino itself. What would really tip the scale, what would really close the gap, I think would be some improvements to the text editor. So anyways, just gotta say thanks very much for taking the time to watch this video, and hopefully I was able to offer some useful insights as it pertains to the differences in annotations between AutoCAD and Rhino.